I'm Jeanne Schul, and this is the shadow and the possibilities of the body. We'll be exploring this idea of the shadow of the body, as well as the vast possibilities that we hold within our somas. We'll also be looking at the struggle between the inner and outer critic that we see in the mirror, as well as those memories, sometimes called inner tapes, that we hear with another person's voice that unfortunately we've incorporated, that continue to criticize even when that other person is no longer there. But we'll also be looking at the wonder of connecting with our potential and our world, which is sometimes referred to as the bright shadow, or that of endless possibilities. This image is one of Pablo Picasso's, and it's called The Girl Before a Mirror. And he created this in 1932. It just offers maybe a psychological perspective on how we see ourselves in the mirror can often be quite distorted based on what we've been told about our bodies and what we believe about our bodies. John Conger tells us that the shadow is the repressed part of the ego and represents what we are unable to acknowledge about ourselves. The body that hides beneath the clothes often blatantly expresses what we consciously deny. In the image we present to others, we often do not want to show our anger, our anxiety, our sadness, our constrictedness, our depression, or our need. Conger also tells us the body is the shadow, insofar as it contains the tragic history of how the spontaneous surging of life energy is murdered and rejected in 100 ways until the body becomes a deadened object. The victory of an over-rationalized life is promoted at the expense of the more primitive and natural vitality. A very blatant message in the mirror offers us a metaphor of what many of us see when we look in the mirror and feel often as less than. Shame comes into this issue, as Capiro offers. I saw mirrored to me the ways I felt not enough. Also, the issue of the black hole paralyzed by shame. So again, shame can often just stop us in our tracks and not enable us to work through these concerns or issues. Capiro also offers, because of the self-perpetuating nature of shame scripts, the affect shame, a biological reaction, instead of becoming conscious as feeling, turns into emotion when biographized by our self-talk. As we become more identified with the stories we tell ourselves, emotion turns into a perpetual mood or state like depression. So again, so often we incorporate these negative messages that may be shared with by family, school, religious organizations. And it doesn't stop there. We begin to incorporate them, and as Capiro offers, they become our self-talk, what we tell ourselves. And the idea of not good enough comes up often for many. When we talk about affect, then, with shame being a part of it, Kapiro tells us, when shame is evoked, we will either water the seeds of self-disgust and contempt through our judgment, or we will water the seeds of deeper inquiry and greater freedom and connection. There is a longing for communion that I believe lies in the heart of all living beings. And it is this yearning that connects us to all that has ever been and to all that will ever be. Kindle this flame within you and let it have its way with you without efforting. And again, her idea, without efforting, without strain, without force. This is an interesting graft. One way of thinking about our bodies is that of body image, which impacts self-esteem. And this is a pretty telling frame of reference for teenagers who are, of course, just coming into the beginnings of their adult body. So as we continue considering, again, shadow as destructive force, but also shadow as a constructive power, Conger tells us, for those that can read the body, it holds the record of our rejected side, revealing what we dare not speak, expressing our current and past fears. The body as shadow is predominantly the body as character. The body is bound energy that is unrecognized and untapped, unacknowledged, and unavailable. And then continuing this frame of reference of the body as shadow, Hartley tells us, the shadow held in the body holds the vital life force and power which has been disowned and needs to be integrated and related to, not dissolved away. Again, this idea from Hartley that the body can be both our guide and our teacher, I think particularly when we have neglected the somatic input, the butterflies in our stomach, the tightness in our throat, when we begin to take those responses into consideration, we can have a guide to what's happening within our nervous system, what's happening somatically within us. So Hartley tells us the body, like a dream, holds the seeds of healing and growth. And through exploring the body, its chronic contractions, pains, and symptoms of disease, we may access this healing source. The healing is already held within the symptom. The hope is that as the body, as shadow, is acknowledged, owned, understood, and its processes integrated into consciousness, the body becomes a guide and teacher in our development, indicating where we have overstepped our limits or not met our basic needs, and where wrong attitudes are keeping us stuck and immobilized. And I would reflect on this, that this idea of the healing already held within the symptom is a frame of reference we hear often with James Hillman. Kapiro offers this idea we can arrive home, landing into ourselves the way a bird lands into its shadow, filling the space completely. So take a moment to let that sink in a bit. There's also the issue of the cultural shadow of the body. And whether it's societal or religious taboos about the body, they influence us, whether or not we hold them as true. Conger offers, "My opinion is that all illness is psychosomatic. The division between psyche and soma is artificial." He goes on to explain, "This coming to terms with one's own body is no small feat. Many of us were scared away from our ground at an early age. Our bodies are often so overloaded with unconscious meanings, drenched with lost emotional memories, that we are ashamed, numb, or ill at ease in the physical company of others. We split off in an intellectual defense, or find some other way to deny our physicality and ignore the lush body voice of friends and clients." He goes on to say, "It seems that psychology has been in danger of becoming body-phobic. We forget the foundations. Our elevator doesn't go all the way down to the bottom floor." Another image of covering the body because of religious requirements. Hartley offers this idea of integrating the shadow of the body instead of keeping it stuffed under and repressed in the somatic unconscious. When addressing the integration of unexpressed body when addressing the integration of unexpressed body systems through somatic movement therapy and body work, we must inevitably grapple with the psychological shadow and the feelings that may arise when confronted with facing and owning the disowned, unconscious, and repressed parts of ourselves. Aspects of the shadow needing to be integrated frequently manifest in unconscious bodily expressions. And these can include unintentional, repetitive gestures, maybe like a tapping foot, constricted movement qualities such as sharp staccato gesticulations, habitual body posturing that compresses the spine and abdominal organs, for instance, hunching the shoulders forward and rounding forward over the abdomen, and uneven patterns in one's gait. That may involve putting much more pressure on the left hip and knee, which may have originated from some pain in the right hip, but has become an ongoing habit, a pattern. Touch and body work can also be used to access memories stored in the body, to explore and resolve emotional experiences, to reduce tension and body armoring, and to experience the core of inner strength and support in the body. It can help create a more positive relationship to one's own body and a healthy self-image. Touch in somatic movement therapy often works gently by moving areas of the body. And one of the purposes is to bring awareness through touch. And again, addressing the parts of us that have been numbed out, forgotten, or where we're holding very frightening memories. So touch for adults too offers nurturance and can have a very healing and reparative effect. Whether it's a hug, a tap on the shoulder, or it can also, again, be hands-on body work that brings awareness into the various parts of the body. One issue that elders sometimes offer is that nobody touches me anymore. So the possibilities, I'm thinking of the Navajo expression, begin in beauty or walk in beauty. So finding what's positive, what's perhaps the hidden treasure within our own somas. This idea of the embrace can be so significant, but many families, many cultures don't find this acceptable behavior, certainly not in public. Whereas other cultures, the greeting is an embrace. It could also be a kiss on the cheek or a kiss on each cheek. And the proximity in which various cultures speak can be quite shocking when you're not used to them either backing away from you as you approach, or if you are a member of a culture that requires more personal space, you might find yourself the one stepping away when someone is feeling a need to be close. So this idea of the necessity of meeting what arises within our own bodies, and Capiro offers this idea of the unconditional embrace of what is. So accepting where we begin. You must not fall asleep to what your deepest love wants, if the embrace is to become a new order. And then the question, is my habitual way of being life-giving or life-affirming? And is it serving me now? Even though many of our behaviors, many of our body armorings or defense mechanisms could be very healthy in our childhood, especially if we were dealing with some significant trauma. However, in intimate relationships as adults, those behaviors, if they've become habitual, can certainly get in our way of drawing closer to the ones we care a great deal about. Capiro uses this term presencing. It may or may not resonate with you, but she offers some colorful language to consider. Embodied mindfulness or presencing could also be described by our common usage word prayer, by which I mean drinking in and kissing back the unbounded spaciousness as the beloved. She also describes non-directed prayer, which involves an open-ended approach in which no specific outcome is held in the imagination. In non-directed prayer, the practitioner does not attempt to tell the universe what to do. For many, this might be meditation. It could involve walking meditation. It could also include centering prayer. So as we consider the potential of our bodies, or our bright shadow, as some refer to it, Hartley tells us our body is our home and ground. It is the vehicles through which we learn and grow, communicate and express ourselves in the world. From the subtlest of molecular exchanges within the cells of the body to the most intricate of dance or acrobatic movements. The body is a universe of experience, constantly changing, evolving, and transforming from moment to moment. And with these young dancers, you get the sense of being very grounded, and yet if you look closely, they're balancing up on their metatarsal arch. Or if you look at the dancer on the far right, she's balancing her whole body weight on her left foot, arms extended, other leg lifted. Imagining our bodies, our somas, as a friend. Hartley invites us to consider this. In order to befriend our world and live in peace with it in all its diversity, we must first befriend ourselves. This entails acceptance of all that within us that feels alien or unacceptable, our problems, our negative emotions, our sickness, our disappointments, and limitations. So often the unacceptable parts of us are somatized, and the body responds by becoming ill, developing pain, or refusing to perform as we would like it to. By paying attention to these symptoms, we can source back to the origins of the problem and gain insight into what needs to change, to be let go of, embraced, or healed. Yoga is another way of connecting into a contemplative or meditative state. Kanya offers the diamond body, the enduring self, is formed out of the subtle body. And of course, when we talk about the subtle body, we're talking about our energy field, and usually also considering our chakra system. In most of the martial arts, this horse position is one that is very grounded and out of which a great deal of power can be projected. Often referred to as the personal power stance because of the availability of the solar plexus, out of which, in this position, this martial artist might thrust his punches or shift his weight to kick. Walking the labyrinth is another way of doing embodied mindfulness, exploring the paths we take in life and sometimes the sudden changes of direction that we may or may not have intended, but were necessary. Often we think of going into the center of the labyrinth, carrying whatever is heavy on our heart or speaking to our soul. And in the center, perhaps a resolution can come, or perhaps we can release that burden and feel refreshed and lightened as we cycle back out of this single path. We often talk in depth psychology about balance. Jung talks a great deal about those dreams which are compensatory, whose goal is to help us get beyond our one-sidedness in our perceptions of our life. And so yoga can offer the metaphor of finding inner as well as outer balance in a position such as tree. Hartley invites us to find and return to our source, with this idea that to return to our source and regain the feelings of well-being, trust, and love, we need to cultivate a conscious relationship with the whole of who we are: body, feelings, mind, and spirit. So coming home to ourself is a frame of reference that Clarissa Estes uses as well. Often in dreams, the image of a horse can offer us this idea of horsepower, as well as this important frame that is synchronizing our energy with our environment and connecting at a soul level with everything surrounding us. And I think in this of David Abram and his idea of to be human is to be in relationship with all around us, with our environment, with the animals, with the insects. And that helps us come into a phenomenological, subjective, intersubjective relationship with our world through our bodies. Now, Capiro rehearses something we certainly heard often in depth psychology, and that is, it is often our wounding that makes us more open to transformative change. Of course, this is the wounded healer, the wounded researcher, all of which come out of a depth psychological frame. And as we consider the possibilities that the body holds, Joseph Campbell challenges us with the question, and that is, the question is whether you are going to be able to say a hearty yes to your adventure. And that adventure, of course, includes body, mind, spirit, soma, soul, psyche. And the answer is, of course, up to each of us and the stage we're in. Often in movement, yoga, and meditative and mindfulness practices, we're invited to center ourselves. And this is an interesting image of how we bring all that is swirling around us into the still place within our being. Again, body, mind, spirit as one. Some of the images used as well as many of the quotations. And I thank you for joining me in this exploration of the shadow of the body as well as the multiple possibilities that we hold within us. Thank you.